stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody to the general meeting of Monday, January 22nd, of the Southampton Town Board of Trustees here at 1 o'clock, Town Hall. Welcome to the folks on Zoom if you are joining us. I will ask the Secretary Treasurer to start with the roll call, please.
All right. President Scott M. Horowitz.
Here.
Secretary Treasurer, I am here. Richard T. Marin Jr.
Here.
Joseph R. McLaughlin.
Here.
Matt Parsons.
Here. Okay,
Everybody's here.
great.
Mr.
So,
President.
thank you, sir. So just for everybody's information, the next trustee meeting, the work session will be the 9:30 a.m. start on Monday, February 12th, 2024, followed by the 1 o'clock general session that same Monday, the 12th of 2024. So if you're planning on attending for any reason, those are the dates. We do have some discussions on for today. I see the first one is this SOAR 2.0 program, supporting oyster aquaculture and restoration, with Zachary Greenberg, Officer, U.S. Conservation, and the Pew Charitable Trusts. I guess that's not you, huh?
He'll be coming on Zoom.
He's coming on Zoom, okay.
He's on. He's on Zoom right now.
He'll share his screen if he has any.
Zach Greenberg needs to be let in.
All right.
Mr. Goodman.
Not so Zoom, huh?
Well, you know.
Technology.
Hi, good afternoon, this is Zach.
Hello,
Good
good
afternoon,
afternoon, Zach.
All right, wonderful, so you can hear me okay. Is now a good time to get started, or?
Sure,
Yep.
you have the floor, sir.
You have the floor.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let me just get my screen sharing here. Get started in 1 sec. And then I'm just gonna ask if folks can see that title slide there.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, pretty blue there. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. So my name is Zach Greenberg. I'm an officer with the Pew Charitable Trust U.S. Conservation Team. I work out of Pew's DC office, and normally I would want to join you all there in person today, but I'm actually in Orlando, Florida for a team meeting, so coming remotely a few states out here. Just first of all, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to present today. Appreciate the time. Recognize the beginning of the calendar year can be very busy, so just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. Just real quick, I only have maybe like 8 or 9 slides to go through, but just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the SOAR program is, what the SOAR 1.0 program accomplished, specifically in New York last go around. And then also a little bit of news about SOAR 2.0 and what we're thinking moving forward, and talk to you a little bit about a proposal that we'd like to share in the Weesock Creek area in Western Shinnecock. And then obviously any questions and answers. And I would just say I can't see folks, so I guess if there's any questions, just please feel free to interrupt, and I'll listen for it. But let's get started here. So the Supporting Oyster Aquaculture and Restoration Program, or SOAR for short, this is really, it's a partnership at the end of the day. It's a partnership between Pew, the Nature Conservancy, growers associations like East Coast Shellfish Growers and Lyoga on Long Island. It also involves several federal agencies there. And so why are we here talking about SOAR today? Well, it's all about oysters. Farmed or wild oysters are really these environmental powerhouses. So all the things we know, oysters improve water quality through filtration. They provide habitat through their reef structure, sort of like coral reefs do. And then in some instances, they can actually protect shorelines against erosion and storms. And so this sets oysters up to be one of our strongest allies in recovery and protection of the species. Just very generally, oysters are at near or historic lows, so what we're trying to do through oyster restoration is recover those co-benefits I just mentioned. But this partnership with SOAR came about in response to COVID-19. So most folks enjoy oysters on the half shell in a restaurant setting. The National Restaurant Association approximated that about 1 in 6 restaurants closed permanently or over the long term due to COVID. And so Pew, TNC, and others got together and we were thinking to ourselves, well, how can we support industry? They are obviously a key player in restoration of oysters, but also during the COVID pandemic. And so what we said was, well, let us go out and secure some funding and we'll step in on behalf of the restaurants and purchase oysters. And at the end of the day, that's what the SOAR program is all about. Advance here. So the first iteration of SOAR launched in 2020. We started in 7 states. The inset maps there, those green dots, those are the restoration sites that we supported. There were quite a few on Long Island, including in Western Shinnecock, and I'll get to that in a minute. But SOAR has 2 components. The first is that purchase program. The second is our Shellfish Growers Resiliency Fund. So this is a national-wide program. It's a grant fund for growers by growers. They apply to it, and we provide funding in advance of innovative gear changes or other approaches to restoration that involve industry. Keep going here. Cool. So what I want to talk today is sort of about the purchase program itself. The photos on the slide here are sort of representative of what it takes to put together a purchase program. So I just wanted to provide that context quickly. I will say what you don't see on this slide is sort of all the lead up to deployment day. So site selection, pre-deployment monitoring, grower outreach, engagement, and contracting. And then there's also post-deployment. So SOAR does, before we put oysters out, we do monitoring in the area. After we put oysters out, we monitor at least once a year later to look at the results. And just to navigate these photos, they're a little small, so my apologies, but top left, that shows growers dropping product off. Any product that we secure through SOAR gets QA/QC'd on the front end, so you can see folks measuring lengths, seeing what the mortality rates are, and also QA/QCing for volume there. That middle row of photos there is reconsolidating product to get it out to the restoration site. That middle tank photo there is actually the start of a brine dip. So we did that to head off any biosecurity challenges when moving around oysters. And then that bottom row is just deployment. So getting those oysters out onto a pre-selected restoration site. So what did this look like in New York? Well, we worked with several dozen growers across the state. We purchased over 500,000 oysters as part of the initial program. We had 7 restoration sites on Long Island. Again, that map there, obviously showing Western Shinnecock Bay, and then those red stars are the 2 sites that SOAR oysters went to. And then we also had one resiliency fund application that was funded for a gear change to aluminum. And so just a little more detail about the Western Shinnecock Bay. SOAR purchased and replanted about 180,000 oysters in this area. Approximately 75% of those oysters survived the first 6 months. Mortality did increase over time. We had about 10% mortality 1 year later. But on the whole, and working with our academic partners at Stony Brook, we do feel like the SOAR 1.0 program was a success in the Western Shinnecock Bay, both for the eco-service benefits those oysters provided and also the economic benefit to growers during COVID. Okay. So we knew we had something good going here with the Nature Conservancy and others with SOAR. And so what we did was went out and secured an additional round of funding that's funding the SOAR program through 2026. We're just dubbing this SOAR 2.0 to differentiate, but the purchase program is expanding to 8 states. You'll see on the inset map there are those states, but then specifically the 2 restoration sites that we'd like to support on Long Island, one in Oyster Bay and one in Western Shinnecock. And then some goals here on the slide, but we're also going to reissue our Shellfish Growers Resiliency Funds. We'll actually be announcing those awardees next month. And then we added a 3rd component to SOAR focused on underrepresented communities with a goal of funding some co-development projects later this year. So, one more? Yeah. So I think that gets us to sort of the main topic of discussion today. And so Just to orient to the map here, so that purple box on the right map there, that's the area that we're interested in after talking with Mike Dole at Stony Brook and folks at the Nature Conservancy and also James with the town. I'll just flag right off the bat, we're not proposing deploying oysters across that entire box that you see there, but we want to select maybe several smaller sites to place oysters in. Just a little more orienting here. So that area in red, that's the uncertified or closed waters in Eastsock Creek. So this is just outside that boundary. And the green is the Southampton Trustees closure, and also the Stony Brook Sanctuary permitted area. So what we're proposing for SOAR 2.0 is to establish a new restoration site in this area of Western Shinnecock, just along the beach and marsh edge there at Pine Neck. And so some of the reasons why we're looking at this site, I wanted to talk to you about it today, just after evaluating the SOAR 1.0 sites, those red stars on the left map there, decent survival at those sites, but not a lot of signs of recruitment, so oyster reproduction. And so we thought that adding an area in Western Shinnecock, a third restoration site, could offer a new opportunity to establish some additional population of oysters in this side of the bay. We've had some Nature Conservancy staff go out to that polygon, that box there on the right map, take a look at the seabed there. It's firm, so that's good for oyster restoration. And then there's also adequate access to the shoreline there through the Pine Neck property. So good access to do pre-deployment monitoring, to do deployments, and also the post-deployment monitoring. So, and I think maybe just like a few more things about this one spot is just that, again, we're looking to be additive to restoration at large in Western Shinnecock. So, the opportunity to establish a third or new restoration site in this area, that's a great way to go about oyster restoration. And then just the accessibility too is really key. Let me see here. Just want to double check my notes. Yeah. So, and just one other thing that we were excited about, just learning more about this area of the bay was just the interest from Southampton in developing an aquaculture program for farmers. That would definitely go in the category of, hey, this could be really exciting to do something with SOAR in this area because it would be a cool opportunity to co-locate a restoration site with farms to get at that win-win benefit between industry and restoration practices. We can obviously talk a little more in detail after today about maybe there's a way for SOAR to help support that program as you all get that launched. And I have one more slide just with some proposed tentative next steps. So I just threw this together of like an anticipated timeline. It's really just for discussion purposes, and obviously would need to fill in a lot more detail if or as we move forward. But just to get a sense from you all sort of what the next steps would be and sort of the overall timeline here. Obviously we want to get you all something in writing, just a quick summary of this proposal, also share that with DEC and our other partners. We would want to be doing outreach to growers, all the monitoring, deployment days, and then the monitoring that comes after that. So that's my last slide. So I'm happy to go back to the map or take questions at this time. But just I wanted to thank you all again for the opportunity here and the time to discuss the SOAR program.
Zach, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very good. Just to let you know, we are in the process of doing aquaculture plots in that area with commercial growers. We're going to do 1 acre plots, and we're in the process of working with the growers, Mike Dole and the college, and also the DEC to come up with a plan for the initial survey of the underwater lands prior to the aquaculture program taking place, and then 1 year and then 2 year monitoring going out on each one of the spots to see the interaction between the sanctuary areas, the clams, and the oysters that are utilized by the aquaculturists. We have the proposed one, I believe there are 16 of them, 1 acre plots, some of them in that area, some of them in areas west of there, that we're going to initially offer to the commercial fishermen. James in my office would have that map readily available for you. So if we're going to be working with you to engage with you to put more oysters in this area, that we don't, duplicate, you guys doing an aquaculture program or on the plot versus a commercial guy. So we need to have that, looked at prior to this happening.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot going on in this area. This is Scott Horowitz, President of Trustees. How are you? Just, I think that we need to take like a real holistic look at what is exactly going on here, because we had, all types of plans for this area. There's a lot of activities going on there. So I think that we need to have further, discussion on, how this is all gonna work out and, what makes sense, and just, logistically, I think we need to have a collaborative conversation about.
This is Chip Marin. I just wanted a quick question of, for these sites, do you have a source base so that MSX and or dermo-resistant seed is not being, is being used and or not having MSX introduced into the bays?
Sure, yeah, happy to talk a little bit to that, and just to the former comment there too, real quick. Yeah, absolutely on the coordination piece, and would want to work with you and the staff and at the town and at the state as well, just to make sure anything we do with SOAR, we want to make sure that's additive to the whole situation here in Western Shinnecock Bay. So would absolutely want to deconflict any sites, or make sure that we're in a position, if we move forward, that just we're complementing your all's efforts.
Do you need a study done, a benthic study done, in these areas for this activity, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, so two answers there. I think Stony Brook University and Mike Dole, who we work with really closely on SOAR, I think they have a good sense of what's going on the benthic side there. We did also have a few Nature Conservancy staff just go out to that area shoreline and just look at sort of bottom firmness, just to make sure if in the future, if we put oysters there, right, they're not going to get covered in sediment or sink into the bottom there. We want to make sure those oysters are obviously above the mud. Do you want to hop real quick back to the disease question? So for SOAR, what we're looking to partner with both growers, contract with them to purchase their oysters and deploy those. So we're looking for large diploid, so reproducing oysters from industry. A lot of those industry members are sourcing, disease-resistant oysters, obviously to grow for their own purposes and their businesses. The one thing we will do, we do quite a bit of data collection to make sure we know what we're getting, also what we're moving and putting out there. So for SOAR 1.0, we asked growers, obviously, for all their permits to make sure they were eligible to apply, but also their source lines for the oysters that they were supplying to us. And then we do some QA, QC on that as well to make sure we're getting exactly what we're getting for.
So you don't see, there's no conflict between the fact that just the clam sanctuary area right there with what it is that you're talking about doing? There's no conflict there?
I don't believe so. Obviously we'd want to work with you all in Stony Brook a little closer just to make sure that larger polygon that I showed on the map off of Pine Neck, our intent would not be to cover that whole area with oysters. It's too large of an area to do this, but what we'd want to do is sort of locate several smaller plots within that area. And obviously we want to pay attention to any, existing, let's just say, clam restoration efforts or other activities in that area, just so there's no conflict.
Yeah, which I believe the college has done some clam restoration, but I believe it was a little further off the beach in the softer bottom. The area that you're proposing to basically there to the inshore part where the meadows are, there's a lot of rock and cobble and stuff along that beach in places. So for laying oysters down and not having them basically smother up into the soft bottom, it would be probably a pretty good area. Now, when you say an area, how large of an area are you looking at? A 1 acre area, or two half an acre areas, or something like that to divide them up? I'm just, in my mind, I'm trying to think of how big of an area so that we can look at our aquaculture areas that we designated, look at the colleges, their benthic surveys of their clam restoration areas so that we don't overlap these, these three programs.
We got Gobler.
Understood, yeah, I don't know if I have an exact acreage number for you right today, because we do need to do a little more of some due diligence work for that area, just to see, right, like, what's that shoreline exactly look like? What does that bottom exactly look like? But,
Yeah.
I wouldn't think it would be more than an acre at the end of the day. I think we also wanna, work with you all. It doesn't have to be like a solid acre block. We'd be more than happy to work and split that up maybe into quarter acres at first and see how we do and maybe expand if we have that opportunity. So just, yeah, upfront, we want to make sure we have a lot of flexibility there to design what we want to do in response to the conditions there.
So when you're done with your team meeting down in Florida, are you available for collaboration with the board, in-house here, with looking at charts and, really rolling up the sleeves and figuring out exactly what's going on here? Is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to figure out a time to be there in person. We can look at some maps, do all that sort of work. More than happy to do that.
Because I think that's really
Yeah.
what the next step needs to be, quite frankly, because, we're talking in conceptual and principles here, but I really think that we got to drill down a little bit further, and I think that needs to be done in person, and let's get some charts on the table here and see exactly what is what and see how it all works out. So when do you think you're available for that? Because I really think that's a good next step.
Absolutely. I can be available as soon as you all want to meet and sit down and do that in person. Obviously, tied up this week due to work travel, but happy to work with your staff and find some appropriate dates, before the end of the month, let's say.
Okay, and then we could bring the college in too and have them sit down with their maps and overlay everything so we can get your project, the college's project, and our aquaculture. We can sit down, overlay everything, and come up with a path forward. So that sounds great. You have James's, Durier's contact, right, in our office, so let's talk on emails and see if we can do something within the next
First week of February.
first week of February, if that's workable for you, yes.
Great, that sounds good and like a good next step. And yep, I've got the contact info, so we'll reach out and look at calendars.
Okay,
Just so you guys know, we already have everything from Stony Brook and our own, so
Yeah.
everything's already on map,
yeah.
GIS, so as soon as, he comes in, we can get to work on it.
All right.
Take a look at it.
One thing, if I may, I get a little jealous. It seems like Weesaw Creek and Shinnecock gets a lot of the great projects and attention, but, I'm more of a Merchants Bay, Seatuck Cove kind of guy, and we don't really have a lot of anything going on over there. It seems like we're having, people on top of people over here in Weesaw, but we've got a lot of good bay bottom that could potentially use some of this restoration work just a little bit farther to the west. We've got, in West Hampton, there's Trustees have a, property with a great boat ramp at the end of Baycrest Avenue, and that opens up to Moriches Bay, which is, wide open as far as I know. And there's not as much of a footprint out in that area, and I just wonder if that'd be something that you guys would even look into or consider, moving a little bit farther to the west.
I think we should absolutely keep it under consideration. Maybe what we do is make sure that's a point of discussion when I'm there in person, with Stony Brook and TNC and others, and we can take a look at the maps and sort of go from there. My only thing would just be, let's let the maps, the current uses sort of drive where we go. SOAR does have we have a finite budget, but maybe there's an opportunity to support or at least get other folks interested in additional areas there too.
Right.
But it's a good point.
Well, I think the reason we keep choosing these areas because we did take the process with the public hearing process of basically closing them as sanctuaries. So they're, we formally went through the process, getting all the stakeholders involved in doing this. We haven't done that in Moriches Bay because it hasn't been, on the radar, and I think the college has been much more comfortable working closer to where their home base is, and
Right.
I think that's why. And then Chris Gobler mapped the where the area of water was the worst, and basically where it was a demarcation zone where it was bad and where it was good. So you get good and bad water, so that he could work west and push the water quality better west. I'm all for doing it up in Mauritius. I mean, I'm very familiar with that area. I can, give you that whole, scenario of bottom up there. I worked there for 25 years clamming and fishing up there, so I know that area very well also. So, when we sit down at our meeting here, I will have James in my office get some maps together of, potential areas and, and just as an open discussion, all right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll put that on the list for the in-person meeting.
Yep. Okay?
Thank you.
That sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen, for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Good presentation. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that was a good one. James, you'll correspond, and we'll see if there's a convenient time that works for everybody to have an in-person meeting. We'll take it from there. Okay, we have another discussion today, the HABs analysis. I see we have Robert Moser here and Jacques Comer here for a presentation. Gentlemen?
If you don't mind, if I can sit at the table.
Absolutely, you can sit at the
It's
table.
hard.
Mr. Comer, you want to come up too?
I'll sit too.
You're sitting over there,
You'll tell me.
you can sit here.
Thanks.
You sign in and state your name for the record, and
Okay.
you have a sign-in sheet for him, James?
I believe it's on the podium.
Oh, you want me to sign?
No, James will get it, James will get it. Thank you, James.
You guys are flipping screens this time?
Yeah,
Yes. You should bring it up on there, I think, Charles.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I congratulate all you guys for your being elected to the town trustees, and I wish you the best of luck in your terms. I hope it's a successful one for the next couple of years. I guess it's 2 years, right? 2 years. You guys are all
Yeah,
in the seat. All right, well, look forward to working with you guys. My name is Bob Moser. I'm a permanent resident of Remsenburg. I've been there since 1992. I have a background in environmental investigations. 25 years or so, I worked in the environmental consulting business, conducting Superfund investigations. So I have had a lot of experience doing, creating and generating valid data under the Superfund law at contaminated sites. My associate here, Jacques Comer, is the more the environmental guy. I'm the geologist, groundwater guy, water chemistry, but he comes along and is part of the organization here. So I thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to share with you my passion for teaching other people about my favorite science. And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. So, question is, why are we here? We're here because, and these couple of slides, first couple of bullet here, you guys are familiar with. You guys are the stewards of more than 25,000 acres. Maybe that's not absolutely correct, but I think we pulled that from your information of surface water bottomlands. And as I discovered, checking in with your GIS folks, that there are over 200 freshwater bodies in the town of Southampton alone. Okay? Of course, the Dongan patent guarantees that every town freeholder's right to access and utilize these valuable resources. Something that I kind of discovered after I retired 3 years ago from trying to teach science to 12-year-olds. Talk about a challenge. So I retired from that and I was looking for some other challenges. And so in the process, I discovered that there seems to be a lack of communication between environmental agencies and the public at large regarding harmful algal blooms and these events. And so I was sort of motivated to try to do something about it. You guys are all familiar with some of the issues here in the town and some of the high-profile freshwater ponds that have cost tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to investigate. So I think there's a need here, and I think we have to also start with an agreement that we think that harmful algal blooms are a problem. They seem to be a bigger concern upstate New York, where obviously freshwater lakes and ponds are their primary source of drinking water, as well as recreation. Here on Long Island, it feels like, well, some of the freshwater ponds are sort of ignored. And certainly they do provide they are the headwaters of our embayments, which is what brings people here to Long Island, keeps people here. And I'm not trying to undermine the importance of our marine environment, but I think the freshwater ponds seem to be overlooked. So I created something I call the Adopt a Pond Project, citizen science-based, and I say that because I'm not employed. I'm trying to gather individuals, volunteers to help with the sampling and also with the funding. I have some environmental professionals involved with the project as well as myself. So what we want to do is we need your support to help you do what you guys do best. And together, hopefully, we can help preserve the nature of the waters of our town of Southampton for future generations. So that's hopefully why we're here, to see if we can work together on this. So who are we? Citizen Science Learning Center. Recently, I've created this organization. We're in the process of applying for the 501c3 status, but that's in progress. So that's where we're headed. Our executive board includes 2 environmental scientists, a chemical engineer, a grant writer, and a local real estate professional. So what we want to try to do is to characterize freshwater bodies for toxic blue-green algae, also known as HABs, and the environmental conditions that cause them. And I think the jury is still out. It's not absolutely sure what triggers these things in our freshwater ponds. Seems like there's a big focus on nitrate. Steve Ballone made the statement that nitrate is enemy number 1. And I think that's certainly true, but it seems to me that phosphorus is being overlooked. And there's a whole saga behind the whole phosphorus analysis that I can share with you. So we also want to be able to serve as a local resource to notify the public of potential exposure to these harmful algae in freshwater bodies. We're also working on building a coalition of other lake and pond associations on the East End, so we can share experiences, resources, and expertise with each other. I think some of you guys and I've spoken to some of you about that there was a Town of Southampton Lake and Pond Association back in the early 2000s, somewhere between 2002 and 2006 or 7, by Fred Havemeyer, and for whatever reason, it no longer exists. So I'd like to find out a little bit more about the origins of that legislatively and why that disappeared, and maybe we should resurrect it. Okay, so where are the locations? Now, because I live on the western side of the town of Southampton, and this has all been done for the last 3 years pro bono, I made it convenient for myself. So I had done a presentation online to the trustees, and at one point, I was asked if I could include Wildwood Lake as well. So West Pond and Eastport, you may know these by other names, but these are the names that I've found out. East Pond and Eastport, Mill Pond and Spionk, Beaver Dam Pond, West Hampton, Old Ice Pond in Quogue, Wildwood Lake in Northampton, and now, as of the fall, because this was brought to my attention by Bill Parrish, that there was a lot of community concern about Silverbrook Pond. So I've agreed to include Silverbrook Pond as part of our investigation. So currently, these are the 7 ponds that we're currently planning to continue to monitor. But of course, there's approximately 200 other freshwater ponds in Southampton town that maybe need some investigation or consideration. So what is our scope of work that we've been doing? Well, it started out bi-weekly. I had contacted Chris Gobler, and I've known him for years, and he has an analysis program. It's funded by the DEC. So he's providing the laboratory analysis at the lab here at SOMAS. So in the beginning, it was bi-weekly, just because of the timing issues and me going out and doing this myself. And then as of last summer, because I found some help from Farmingdale State College, some interns from Farmingdale, under a program that they have to help with the sampling. So we wanted to keep the students busy, so, okay, let's do it every week. All right? So besides the HABs analysis, we've now collected 7 rounds of samples for analysis of nitrogen and phosphorus compounds. And because of my background, working for clients on Superfund sites, there's an importance to have valid data, and that the data is not just coming from cheesy little field testing kits out in the field, but rather that you bring it to an accredited lab that's accredited in New York State. They're called ELAP labs. So again, we had some student interns participating this past summer to help with the sampling and process and analyze the data. And as part of their program, they were responsible for reporting that in a presentation to the faculty at Farmingdale. Another little sidebar here is I'm associated with, as an adjunct at Farmingdale, with their GIS department, and they had purchased a professional level drone with a multi-sensor, multi-spectral sensor hanging on it. And so what we were trying to do is to see if we could identify areas of groundwater discharge, because that's what's keeping these pond levels, is the groundwater flow to these ponds is basically keeping the level where it is. So we wanted to see if there's a way we can use a drone technology using the thermal imaging to see if we can see the anomalies between either warmer or colder groundwater during different times of the year. So we're hoping to go back out again in February to flight one of the ponds, East Pond, because it was small and easy to access, and launch the drone. So what did we find out? What have we found out? All right, since the summer of 2021, there have been no occurrences of HABs in any of the original 6 ponds. Silverbrook Pond was added, as I said, because in 2022, they brought samples, some of the local folks had brought samples up to Gobler's lab, and they documented that they had actually documented that they had a lab based on the lab analysis rather than just visual. One of the interesting things happened in 2022 is that the blue-green algae levels in Old Ice Pond and Wildwood Lake were at elevated levels, 13 and 14 micrograms per liter, which was above their historic levels of around 3 micrograms
That's
per liter.
phosphate, that's nitrate.
Sorry?
It's phosphate and that's nitrate.
Blue-green algae.
Oh, blue, the blue green, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, all right. And, if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to, interrupt. I have no problem.
You're doing great, you're doing great.
Okay. Now, just so you know, there's a threshold of 25 micrograms per liter by the health agencies to say that you are experiencing a HAB.
Which could be a respiratory issue if people are sensitive to it.
Exposure, when you get it on your skin,
Okay.
it can be an irritant, but ingesting it can be
Dead dogs.
lethal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I believe that's happened.
and when I do drive around and I see, people on kayaks or canoes with their dogs, and they have no clue as to what's going on there, it's a concern.
Yeah, I've seen the water in Agawam and Mill Pond, it's like
Oh.
pastel green, it's terrible.
I know, and thankfully, the ponds we've been sampling, with the exception of Silverbrook, have been crystal clear. And just, so when I've had students with me or other people, because I drop the samples off at Gobler's lab, that it's a perfect opportunity to run up to Lake Agawam and say, this is what it can look like. Yuck. Okay, so threshold of 25 micrograms per liter. Now, there were 2 events of blue-green algal blooms, I'm sorry, green algal blooms, not blue-green, because when I get the results from Gobler, he doesn't just give me the blue-green, he breaks it down into blue-green, green algae, diatoms, and one other?
Dunfodils?
Hmm?
Dunfodils?
There's another organism that he provides, and I can never remember the name of it. I'm not the bio guy. Anyway, so we had these two occurrences of green algae in October 2022 and July in 2023. Let me just back up on that, so we stick to this. And the green algal bloom in last summer lasted for several weeks. It started in July, right after we had a huge 3-inch downpour over a weekend, and they had a tremendous amount of runoff coming into the pond. And, there was no real smoking gun, but there was just about a couple of 100 yards up the road, there was a landscaper that was storing fertilizer outside in their parking lot.
So that would be a surface runoff, and it wouldn't be specifically like a phosphorus that comes up from the groundwater.
Again, we don't know whether that was a source of phosphorus that came into the pond at the time. So it's again, a matter of continuing to document the phosphorus levels in the pond as well as any runoff that we can try to catch.
It does bring light that all the bad stuff that ends up in our ponds comes from the upland sources, which is outside of our control. So that's why, people and, businesses have to be cognizant of what they put on their property
Yep.
and storage-wise.
I think Silverbrook suffers from that pretty badly.
Yep. Okay, so now, we went out in November, this past November, and sampled the 7 ponds this time for the nutrient analysis. And the one thing that I did differently this time, and this is part of this saga with phosphorus, is that there are no labs, commercial labs on Long Island that can get the detection limits, the method detection limit low enough to see down to at least 20 micrograms per liter for total phosphorus that the DEC uses to characterize a pond as degraded. So I had to send samples up to Syracuse to the Upstate Freshwater Institute lab that can get that lower detection limit. Their detection limit is 5 micrograms per liter. The DEC's standard is 20, and the labs locally can only get me down to 500. So I'm right now trying to work with the Suffolk County Health Department, say, can you help with this? Why do we have to send samples upstate New York? All right. Now, what's interesting is that the nitrate concentrations appear to decrease during the summer months. When we just look at nitrate, I only have one data point for phosphorus. And so I can't really make a graph. All I know is that, what's happening with nitrate.
I mean, that just because the algae is uptaking the nitrogen during the summer and not during the winter. Because this nitrogen
All the
isn't as
all the
productive, yeah.
So again, that's the hypothesis, right, is that that's probably what's happening. I know this graph is a little hard to see, but basically, if you look at the dark line, you can easily trace that dark line, and all of 6 ponds seem to behave the same way, that the nitrate levels go down in the summer, and then they go back up in the winter, for whatever reasons. We don't know exactly, but I think we can assume it's the growing season, right? The plants are growing. Okay, so why should we do this? There's a whole bunch of reasons. And I'm just going to list them up here. Biodiversity conservation, habitat restoration, educational opportunities, water quality improvement, recreation and aesthetics, community engagement, scientific research, legal protections, economic benefits, and property values. Again, if somebody does get injured while utilizing one of these freshwater ponds, I don't know what the town's liability is, but it's something that.
Well, I think you gotta add public health and safety to your lists.
Okay, well, maybe I kind of assumed that.
Especially knowing that, when you have a harmful algal bloom and you ingest it, you could become sick. If it gets on your skin, it's harmful to people's pets, obviously, so public health and safety.
When we do get notified that there are high HABs in ponds, We do post it. SAG is one that comes to mind because historically that's been a real hot spot for blue-green algae. And
So, again, as I understand it, it's between the DEC and the Suffolk County Health Department that put the signs out. And Gobler.
We put
Yeah,
signs
you
out.
guys
We
do
put
have your
signs
own
out
sign?
also.
Yes.
Yeah, we do put signs out
Okay.
also.
Yes, the trustees work with the health department to put signs in our area so that they don't have to do it, essentially.
Yeah,
But
Okay.
We
the-
collaborate
The
with
health
other
department
agencies.
lets us know, and then the trustees, marine staff will post it.
Okay, because I've spoken with the health department, with Mike Jensen there, and I even offered, I said, if we have an event, I mean, Gobler is the one that's responsible for reporting it to the DEC
Yeah.
and to the health department, and then everybody else should be notified somehow. But I said, if you needed somebody to go out and put a sign out, I'd be happy to do that.
To my knowledge, the health department only does it at certified bathing beaches, right? Or is that?
We're talking about harmful algal blooms.
Oh, okay.
So,
Right.
like Lake Agawam, there's a sign right there.
Gotcha.
At any public access point, there's a sign that says harmful, harmful algal blooms, be careful in what the precautions are.
that's probably one of the highest levels on the island, if
Yeah.
not the highest level on the island.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So project outcomes, this can be a resource for student-based research science projects. I've tried to engage, the local high schools that are near me, between West Hampton and Center Moriches, Sayville, any number of high schools, to see if we can get, kids involved. Some of the high schools, and Jock knows this full well, he was involved with this, that they have independent science research projects that the kids are allowed to do, but, it's a whole nother world, the K-12 education world, and I've been there, 16 years worth of that. Okay. Hopefully Farmingdale will help provide some interns for the 2024 season for the sampling. It seems like we have a few kids that are interested in continuing to help, or new ones to get involved. We hope that the project will provide a baseline of data for future monitoring or remediation of these resources as needed. And the data necessary to characterize the health of these freshwater ponds, again, with valid data that's coming from a lab that is certified in New York State. So the future scope of work will continue to sample for HABs, providing community service through this notification system. And what I'm proposing is that we could put a sign up, and I know that the Surfrider Foundation is doing something similar, using a QR code. That if there's a public access point, that there could be a QR code on a sign that ties right into the state's reporting system, and
Database,
also
yeah.
help if they see something that they can report ahead. Ed, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I know when I first came on the board, Fred had the Lakes and Ponds Association, and there was representation from at least 15 or maybe 20
Yeah.
of the lakes and ponds, and the trustees would ask the associations to take water samples and send them upstate, and the trustees were paying for them at that time. So we could get some kind of a database of what was going on in our lakes and ponds. And over time, I mean, I've been here 17 years, but the blue-green algae outbreaks have, I wouldn't say they've gotten worse, because Mill Pond and Lake Agawam have always been bad, but I think they've expanded to other ponds slowly, and, why, we don't know. I mean, it could have been carried by a bird or something like that, or transported over there, but I do know that it has become a much wider issue. And, we try to work with, like the village, and the village mayors and all the people over there, and the Conservancy to do remediation on the pond. I believe they're coming up with a big fancy filter that they're gonna, recycle the clean water and put it back. And I don't know how that's gonna work out, but,
Me either.
and we work with our rain garden on our parking lot. We're gonna
Right.
install a better rain garden, a more functional one that'll transition, the rain from the hard to the plants and filter it that way. So, there are things that can be done, but I think with you and your organization, it's the education of the public and people around, what you do is what you put on your property, the fertilizer that you use, because it's not like putting a fertilizer on a lawn that's in Shinnecock Bay where 3 tidal cycles that get pulled out to the Atlantic Ocean. It stays in that pond, it's in a bathtub, so.
Yeah.
And it gets recycled and reused and reused, and there's no method of really taking it out other than, like we do in Mill Pond and Agawam, harvest the lily pads, you take them out. That's about,
I mean,
very
even-
limited on
Well,
what
then
we can do.
we're struggling with that.
Yeah,
We're struggling with that. We don't have all the answers to, that we're using these types of projects almost like templates to
Right.
try and figure out, like to your point, what's causing it, how do you remediate it, how do you get ahead of that? Land use,
Sure.
it's a lot different 50 years, than 50 years ago. We have so much density, you have so much going into the system right now, and once you get past that equilibrium, you hit the tipping point, it's hard to bring it back. For the most part, the environment is resilient. If you take those steps, you can get it to go in the other direction once you can figure out what that diagnosis is. So it's like everybody get around the table and let's figure it out. The tough part is, getting the funding and, all this stuff is where it gets difficult.
Right.
And it's like we rely on the Community Preservation Fund for the water quality, a portion of it, a lot of our projects for the trustees. Because let's face it, a good chunk of that is in our wheelhouse. I really think that, there should be a much smoother way, a more cohesive way in order to get those benefits to the public, especially when you're affecting people's public health and safety
Yeah.
with a lot of this. I really think we can do a better job in general as government in getting around the table to, if you got something to say, you gotta come up here, you can't speak from there. You can't speak from there, you're welcome to join Mr. Moser here, because I know you're part of the deal, but you're welcome, and you really should, out of respect, you should come up and join the
There you
conversation.
go, that
I'll
did it
stand
to
up
him.
here.
And
So,
You sit down here, you gotta sit
so
down,
one of the things
you gotta
that-
state your name for the record, we gotta be official about this now.
My name is Jock Comer.
Next time you gotta wear a tie.
On the board of directors of Citizen Science Learning Project and Adopt a Pond.
Thank you for that.
Bob Moser's a good and old educational friend.
Thank you for that too.
So, so many of the things that you guys are saying are absolutely spot on. Not only that, there are ponds that we have that have demonstrated the deleterious effects of harmful algae blooms, but also that, part of this is what has happened over generations, ours for sure, that has contributed to degrading these ponds. We don't know a whole lot about the small ponds, the likes of which Bob has been studying. And so that kind of background could actually help us with all of the ponds. So one of the biggest things for me is that we need baseline data of all sorts. The Silverbrook stuff isn't happening, for no reason at all. It's a great notion to say that it has to do with the drainage, because that's, it all drains to there, and then eventually to the bay, of course. So it really needs to be looked at not only from the standpoint of nitrogen, but also phosphorus. And we need to be able to access credible data and to generate credible data so that you guys can make the right decisions in terms of, where you put your resources or where we ask for resources in the state.
And like, using that as an excellent example, Silverbrook.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at all the different agencies that touch that have skin in the game, that are helping to contribute to the degradation of that specific, whether it be this, runoff coming from the highway and so forth. It's like everybody's got to get around the table and figure out how we work together to figure out what's going on, and then how do we work together on the solution as seamlessly as possible with the least amount of pain, because this problem's not going away. It's just getting worse and worse. And you have a lot of people. I mean, I commend both of you for, utilizing your time and your passion, your expertise. And I've said this to you time and time again over the course of many years, that you have this ability and that you're willing to bring it to the table to try and help for the greater good, because you bring up the generations, and that's what it's about. It's about, you've seen it going this way for this generation going down, and you're looking forward to say, how do we get it to go the other way? And that's why you're here, and that's why, personally, why I serve on this board at large. So, you know, it's a great conversation, and I know from our perspective, or certainly from mine, it's like, I love getting people around the table to figure out how we do things. You know what I mean? Because they always seem to be tougher than they should be. But when you have a group of people that want us, you know, be successful in a common goal, generally you can figure it out. So,
Well, I think education spreads too. You know, if you get a knowledgeable homeowner or a knowledgeable person, they tell somebody else,
Yeah, yeah.
this is why your dog can't drink the water in the lake, and it kind of goes from there.
So when do you typically start your sampling? Like April, May, like when's your time?
Okay, well, to answer that, we're planning to go out in February to do another round of samples for nutrient analysis, because we want to be able to see the differences seasonally with the
Okay.
nutrient analysis. Now, of course, we're outside of the HABs, you know, occurrence season. So once we get into June, we'll be back out sampling on a weekly basis for HABs, but also continuing, again, depending on the funding, the HABs analysis is at no cost, but the lab cost for the nutrient analysis runs about $100 a sample. And, you know, based on a monitoring program, you know, to develop enough seasonal data, we're looking at collecting at least 12 samples over the course of the year for the nutrient analysis.
So you're doing one sampling per month in the winter, then you do weekly sampling in the summertime?
Theoretically,
Yeah.
we would actually add sampling times during the fall and the winter, and then go back to the regular sampling during the growing season. And the idea being you need background data to know where you start, and that would make perfect sense.
what can we do for you to try and
All
help you
right,
out here?
all
What
right.
is it?
Well,
Getting
the challenge when you speak about funding and the CPF, the challenge is that when I present this to the CPF folks, can't help you,
Yeah.
because the way the language of the legislation is written, this is a monitoring program.
Yes, we know about
Okay.
this.
Yeah, we know.
When I think about it, it's like, well, we go to the doctors every year, maybe for a physical, they take blood samples so that you can check to see what your health is and decide whether you need to get medication. So until we have the data, how do we know whether the ponds are healthy or not? We can look at it and say, geez, it looks clean.
Wouldn't it be so cool if we could actually anticipate when and if a harmful algae bloom was going to actually occur? Or whether conditions were at least, you know, had the most correlation to algae blooms? That would be amazing. It's like predicting an earthquake, only easier. It's
More
doable.
understanding whether it's a nutrient underload or a nutrient
Exactly.
overload.
And already knowing the characteristics of that particular basin, whether it's Wildwood Lake, where I live, or whether it's one of the smaller ponds, because you already know where the water's coming from. You know where the runoff is coming for, you know, the Quag Ice Pond, or you know where the runoff is coming from, or you know how much of the bottom water is actually coming in. So these.
Or whether it's whether it's generational water, or
Legacy
how
stuff.
old is it?
Yes,
Legacy
for
stuff
sure.
Yeah,
in the
legacy
sediment.
water or not, yeah.
Big difference.
Like Mill Pond with the,
Yeah.
you know, the carp stirring up the bottom sediments, that legacy stuff,
Yeah,
right?
that's 50, 70 years it's gonna be happening, because the farms are still there, so it's still in the
Yeah.
pipeline, it's
system.
still coming down.
Now, I'm also utilizing and have access to the USGS and Suffolk County's groundwater modeling. I come from a background of groundwater modeling as well, and I have the maps for the contributing areas for each of these ponds. So we can actually develop a watershed, not only a surface watershed, but a ground watershed based on the modeling, to say, you know, what are the travel times, you know, from any given point in that watershed to the pond.
It's
All
a
right.
good tool.
Hey,
I didn't want to, Scott.
Yeah,
you
we
wanna
don't
say
want
Nope,
too
nope,
far.
good.
All right, so, all right, you want to know, I think we've kind of gone on with this. Scope of work, I just, you know, the drone surveys, again, is something that I'm fascinated with, and hopefully there'll be something come out of that. We might be able to use this to actually, because the only place I can sample from is a spillway. That's the only accessible spot on the pond that I have. So you know, it's a logical place because that's where all the water is draining to.
Yeah.
But I can't see what's going on the far ends of the ponds. So possibly utilizing a drone for that purpose would be very cool. Now, how can you help? All right, so let me just throw this out there. For 2024, using the costs for the lab analysis for nutrients, it's $6,700. Basically, it's $100 a sample. And so far, that cost has been borne by anyone who has contributed. I've asked, you know, I've got a GoFundMe site thing going on. I've asked for local civic associations and community organizations, individuals, and so basically the community has borne the costs of the analysis. Now, we start talking about labor, because right now this has all been done with volunteers, supplies, equipment, instruments, travel, expenses, we're looking at somewhere around $20,000. And that's for 7 ponds. Now, you could divide that, you know, $27,000 by 7, but there's an economy of scale going on here too, because when we go out, we do just a big loop. We just collect the samples and we can get all the samples.
And all 7 ponds are within Southampton?
Those are all in Southampton.
One's like the dividing line, right? And one in Eastport, is that like, kind of like?
Yeah, that's the edge of
It's
the
like
town of
half is,
Southampton.
right, yeah.
And we could prioritize the ponds too. I mean, it doesn't mean that we have to do all of them, but, you know, we're providing a model here for what we can do. What I'd like is, because we don't have the ability to communicate other than knocking on doors, which I hesitate to do, is to notify the residents of a program like this, so they become part of the citizen scientists that are helping to gather data, even if it's just a visual. So that's, and the other thing I forgot to add was, if there's any way you guys can provide better access to individual ponds, because right now most of them have it's a difficult access, especially if I want to put a kayak in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, there's 200.
We have to
Some of them
prioritize.
are-
Obviously, we have to prioritize.
Yeah, some of them are tough to get to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Good chunk of them.
All
Well,
right. What do you get? All right. I think we've kind of hit all these things. There's the public service
yeah,
notification.
I think that the public gets, you know, you get a lot. And it's like, it's a relatively, you know, you would think that this is a relatively small ask for one of the wealthiest communities that there is in the state.
It is in terms of what, you know, we're actually asking you guys for, but the benefits not just to the residents, but also to the trustees in terms of, you know, having the trustees' name on something. I think that's a perfectly legitimate angle on the entire thing, is to have you guys be recognized as the people that are helping to maintain small freshwater bodies that are surrounded by communities. You know, in some cases, the communities are large, in some cases, it's just a few houses.
Well, you know, when you talk about the environment and you talk about quality of life and public health and safety, it all should be like priorities, you know what I mean? Let us take a look at, you know, obviously we're budget constrained, as you're aware. I mean,
I just thought you were gonna write us a check.
Yeah, I personally have done that in the past, right?
Yes, you have. Thank you
So,
so much.
because I was, as an individual citizen, care about it all. But I think that, you know, the whole thing is to figure out a system by which we get sustainability on these things, where there's, hey, listen, this is how we handle this. Funds come from this, and this is what we do to testing, this is the database that we build up, and so on and so on. And I think that's where, you know, our board's gotta get around the table, and we gotta get some priorities on where we're going and what we're doing. And we'll do that, and, because I certainly appreciate both of you coming here and what you do. And I know exactly what you're up against and what you're trying to do. And it's a matter of how we, in our official capacities, can try and figure out how to make it all work, you know, and it's gonna take a little bit of time and
We
discussion.
understand that.
Yeah.
We understand that. Yeah, you've got your challenges.
But we also don't want to see a project like this that's imperative and important to kind of just fall apart and
Which is-
fade away, because, you know, it is gonna be more and more important.
Which is why I personally write checks at times for things that the government can't fund, because I know that they're important to the community at large, and that's important, so.
If the public doesn't want to give, can, you said to write a check, what do they write a check to if they want to write a check? The public, if they want to write a check to you about, to help fund this.
How do you?
He has a GoFundMe page.
There's a
Oh, yeah.
QR, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have a,
Just the QR, okay.
yeah, QR code, and I, pushed, I have a Facebook group for the West Hampton Beach area, that's got about 2,700 people on it, and I push that stuff out, but of course, not everybody does Facebook.
Yeah.
So then it's an email campaign, so,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
anyway. I
We
try.
have scheduled public hearings for today, so we're gonna have to move on, but
Thank you very
you
much.
guys have
Thank you
done
so
a
much.
fantastic job at presentation, and
Nice presentation.
we're gonna see what
Yeah.
else we can do to help.
Good. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Yes.
Keep up the good fight, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a public hearing. So notice of public hearing for the determination of waterfowl hunting location permit number 155. It was prior adjourned on 12/18/2023 at 1. Is there a motion to
Motion
continue?
to open it.
Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Joe McLaughlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is anybody here that wants to speak on this public hearing?
That's for the blind transfer, right? Yeah,
This,
155,
Yeah, and Burnett, correct?
yeah.
I mean, it's listed as something else, but I guess we're talking about the same thing here.
It's the same
It
thing,
was,
just, yeah.
Adjourned, like the last meeting, I ended up having COVID, like, right before
Okay.
Christmas. So,
Take 5 minutes,
okay.
tell us.
So it was Jeffrey Jones is blind. So it's in his dad's name now, and we tried transferring it a few years ago. We were told that the trustees denied it. When I go back through the meeting minutes, I don't think it ever actually got in front of you guys. So Jeff had kept it in his name for the last couple of years. Sorry, I got some seasonal asthma going on. So we tried transferring it again this year. I think some of the concerns were safety concerns and multiple complaints. As far as all of us know, we haven't had a single complaint. Safety concerns, we have plenty of clearance from the houses. We haven't had any issues with neighbors. One of the comments was the blind permit was non-transferable because it was a special permit due to medical, reasons. I don't think there's anything on the permit saying it was granted for, non-transferable or it's something special. And I think Jeffrey sent an email to you guys, just kind of explaining more of the history of that. And I think those were kind of the only issues, There's a group of us that we don't hunt it that much. We hunted it as kids growing up all through high school, lots of good experiences, and it's one of those spots we all make a point to go out a couple times a year. It's not a spot that gets a lot of use. We don't overhunt it. We're all very careful. It's the same people that have been hunting it since the early 2000s.
I know that the one problem that is the proximity to John's blind.
So
Because John,
Jeffrey's blind has been there from before. And I know when the other blind was getting transferred, the Bay Constables did talk to Jeff and make sure, like, hey, I think it's 20 feet too close. And there was a conversation. It was, no, it's good. Have guys hunt, I mean, we all hunt, and it's good if other people get the opportunity too. So we're looking at kind of like, well, if it was okay to let them have their blind and, make that exception for the 20 feet, that we shouldn't really have that held against us now. I mean, if it's a big issue,
I mean, I know the
20 feet,
Marine
maybe
Patrol
we can move things around slightly.
the Marine Patrol filed a report saying that it was unsafe.
Yeah, it's also, and I didn't know if I should really bring it up in this, but Rich hunts that blind with John, so it's a little bit of a conflict of interest having him be the one to review it. You know, we'll go and we'll shoot birds, and John's always a little, he wants to control that whole area. And he's given us a hard time over the years, and you know, we don't want to bring it to your guys' attention because it's the last thing you guys should have to deal with. But we end up just kind of, you know, saying, it's all right, you know, we're done for the day, we shot our birds, and letting it go. And it's kind of like we were the ones that, well, we feel like we were the ones kind of, you know, playing by the rules and not having any issues, and now we're getting a little penalized for it.
I mean, my concern is a global concern. You know, this is one of the few, you know, managed waterfowl programs that exists. We have around 300 spots. And, you know, this town is not the same town it was 50 or 100 years ago, or 25 or 30 years ago for that matter. Or since, you know, you bring up COVID, since COVID even changed. Substantially more people, different, right? So, you know, you talk about waterfowl. There's a lot of people that don't understand the heritage and the traditions that the trustees are in place to protect and defend. And that becomes challenging as time goes on, and I think you're aware of that.
Oh, yeah.
So just in maintenance of, you know, things that are held near and dear under the Dongan patent, okay, alone, is a challenge that we, you know, we struggle to protect. So you want every I to be dotted, every T to be crossed, and when you're talking about matters of public safety, they have to be paramount. So you know what? It has to, in my opinion, is when it comes to public safety and guns, I'll fight to protect what, you know, you folks like to do out there waterfowling, but when it comes to safety, you gotta be well over. There's no, well, it's good enough. There's no good enough when it comes to public safety when you're talking about guns. All right?
No, we totally
We want to
agree.
be the safest that we can. The other thing is, you know, the records that we have shows this spot being denied, yes. Officially, paperwork shows it being denied, and
Okay.
we have the understanding that there were considerations made that this was different than the normal, you know, undertaking or granting of areas. There was, as you had brought up, some special waivers relative to the situations that were occurring that no longer exist today. So, you know, it's like, when I sit here in this public hearing, listening to you and understanding the global aspect of this whole thing and hearing what you have to say, and I'm glad that you came down to speak to us, because it's important, I understand.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But when I'm looking at prior denied, I'm hearing about public safety issues. I'm hearing about prior, you know, meta issues that were, you know, resolved but no longer existed. It's kind of hard to grant the transfer. It's hard to maintain this position with so much stacked against it when you're trying to preserve the integrity of an entire program. You know, I'll think about this. You know what I mean? But you came here honestly, putting your cards on the table, and I'm telling you what I see sitting here as the president of the trustees. So I'm certainly listening to hear you out and give this some thought. You know, but
None of us want to
We
see
appreciate
sites
that.
going away. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
once it's
just
gone,
take
that's
it
it.
note
Yeah.
that we want to see guys being able to gun from here, you know, for quite but this is just a hot item.
Yeah, and we're willing to work with if it's, you know, if we could adjust some of the blind locations or something so we can get that 20 extra feet separation.
well.
Whatever you guys need.
Well, we're not gonna make a decision this today. I can tell you that right now, because there's a lot of things that have to
Yeah.
that have to be considered.
Now,
So.
the public safety issues, like, do you guys have any more information on what those actually
Well, I
are?
mean, right out of the gate, you're listing that you're not making the clearances, even if it's by 20 feet. If you're not making those clearances, you're not making those clearances. And once I have, you know, somebody from the law enforcement side of it, bringing to my attention that there's a public safety concern that this board has the ability to remedy, we're certainly gonna do that. We have to do that. And that's, do you have other spots that you hunt throughout the town?
I do.
You do?
I have a
So-
spot in Mill Pond.
And you've been hunting for how long?
Oh, since I could.
Since you could, and
Before
is
that
this
was my
something that
dad.
you want for your child?
Yep, and this is always that spot that we always say like, oh, it'll be great like when we have kids, all the kids will hunt it.
I hear
It's got a
about the
good
spot.
solid bottom. It's waitable.
I'm talking about
Mhm.
in general.
Mhm.
You understand? It's an absolute privilege to have a reserved duck blind spot.
Oh yeah.
It is. I mean, you have the right to hunt and dog and pat, and I'm here to represent it and fight for it. But
It's just a hot item.
the reserved spot is a privilege that we've got to manage so that the whole program works appropriately. This board's got a difficult job protecting what you love, you know what I mean? And it's like for not only you, but for all the hunters that love this, we need everybody's cooperation. We need to have good information so that we don't have the Wild West going on out there on the waterway, so that we can continue for the next 400 years, making sure that everybody can safely go out there and enjoy this resource that you enjoy. You know what I mean? So this is a unique situation that's going on here, and it warrants.
Yeah, we definitely have to talk more on it.
Okay.
And
if anybody wants to go out there and walk it or something, just let me know. I can meet you down there and kind of go over, any questions you have or anything.
it just gets tight in Burnett's Creek, as you know, nowadays, house-wise.
Yeah.
It's
And-
like, it's not what it was.
Like our blind and John's blind are a little different too. Like the way we have our blind situated, our closest houses are off of each end. So when we're shooting out front, the houses are far away. When John's got his blind, he's got like a house out here and then a house off this end and then that corner of the road at the end of the bulkhead. And I know there's been issues with that blind over the years with a caretaker calling in for shooting and having BBs land on the road and the house across the street and stuff like that.
But Jeff's family no longer owns the Burnett house, and that's what
Yes.
this blind was based on, is that because it was Burnett property, Jeff could access it with his son. That's where it's sticky. So I mean, we have to talk it over.
Well,
as
we
a
do,
board.
and then because of the fact that the town has changed so much, that law no longer exists. Because we want, everybody that wants to be involved in the resource to be able to go out there and enjoy it, as long as they fit the parameters, not that somebody that owns 250 feet of frontage is taking some type of a precedence over somebody. That's to
Yeah.
protect the average freeholder, in the town for being able to enjoy this activity. You follow? So there's a lot that's going on here, you know what I mean? So you gotta recognize that it's not as cut and dry as it appears.
Yeah, but one of the prerequisites that we use in determining a blind is safe or not in public safety is a recommendation of the Bay Constable, and they recommended that it wasn't safe, so.
Correct.
We'll
And
have to put that, I wanna put that on the record, so.
Maybe it'd be possible to have another Bay Constable review it with me or something too, because having him be the one that hunts in the blind next to it,
I
that
didn't
John
know
is
that.
adamant
I'm just-
about,
yeah.
he wants that whole corner of the bay to himself,
All right.
and,
So,
You know,
we're-
it
as I
might be
said,
a
we're
little
not making
unfair.
decisions.
yep, I appreciate that.
So I appreciate your testimony, so. we can-
Yep.
Is there anybody else that wants to opine on
I
this?
think a couple
topic?
emails were sent.
They're part of
Yeah.
the written record.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them were to Ann. And I took Ann's spot, so
Oh, okay.
that's where we're at.
Okay.
So, but I mean, we have Ann's emails on file.
I think that we will set up a parameter here, if we close this public hearing, that we leave the written comment period open for 2 weeks.
To the
Is
next-
that-
to
is
the
that-
next
is that
meeting.
reasonable,
How about
Mark?
to the next meeting?
February 12th.
Mark?
February
The
12th.
next meeting is not 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks.
It's 3 weeks. The next meeting is 3 weeks from now,
February
because
12th.
February only has.
So you want to say
yeah.
2 weeks, that way we have all the stuff compiled by that next meeting. So 2 weeks, leave the public comment period open. I would say we close the public hearing because there's nobody here with the exception of you.
Yeah.
So
No.
if somebody's got something to say, they can send in a writing.
Yep.
Is anybody on Zoom? Charles, want to talk about this? Good point.
Doesn't sound it.
Is there anybody anywhere? Anyone?
All right,
Thank you.
it's a good day for it.
All right, so if there's no more comment, nobody's got any comment, then I would motion we close this public hearing and leave it open for 2 weeks for written.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And
Seconded
if
by
anybody needs anything from me in the meantime, you know, you guys have my cell phone number and everything, and
Okay.
let me know.
Seconded by trustee Warner, all in favor?
All right,
Okay,
thank
that-
you.
that public hearing is
And
closed.
one other quick comment, thank you for everything down at Mill Pond. Last year was the first year in a long time when I pulled up a decoy weight and there was actual vegetation on it.
Oh.
You know, for probably 15 years before that, I've never seen it.
Wow, so that's good testimony.
Yep. Those raft things seem to be making a bit of a dent.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
So, thank you guys.
All right.
All right, so that concludes the public hearing. So now let's go to public portion. And I would like to acknowledge that our liaison, Councilman Bill Pell, is here. And perhaps you'd like to address the board?
That's why I waited for public portion. Nice. I feel like
You could be
I'm
number
standing.
one, and you could use as much time as you like.
I only need 2 minutes. I just wanted to say our meeting last Friday went very well, I thought. And I wanted to let the freeholders know that the town board and the trustees are talking and hope to have the MOA and the tax line finished up by budget season. We really can't go into it, but I just want to let the people know that we're working on it.
I appreciate that, and I will say, and as you say, we can't go down into it, but it's no secret that Councilman Pell sat as trustee Pell for well over a decade and fully understands what is needed to protect and defend all the beneficiaries, the freeholders, and the commonality of this trust. And I would like to say that, thank you for that, and that, you know, I think that the public expects us to really work together so that we can protect natural resources and defend public access for generations to come. And I think that's best done by having people really work on these issues to make sure that that happens, because that benefits everybody. And I think that's where,
Because in the bottom line, like you say, we all work for the same people.
that's right,
And one more thing, it's Ed's turn to buy the pizza next time.
that's true. And if Ed's buying the pizza, you know there's gonna be pepperoni on it,
Yes.
so,
All right, thank you again.
thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Billy.
Take care. All right, so let's go to the application for permit. So the Board of Trustees waives a public hearing, or it's already happened, on the following applications because it has been determined that the following projects do not raise a significant degree of public interest, or public input is not needed to aid in the decision-making process. So I have a first renewal, trustee resolution 2024-18, Swissair Resort Inc., 81 West Diana Road, Hampton Bays, tax map 900-257-3-2. I recommend it's
I'll second that.
seconded by trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye. Next one's me,
Yes.
Resolution 2024-19, renewal application of 188 Redwood LLC in the village of Sag Harbor.
I'll second that.
Seconded trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
We have some resolutions here. You have another one?
It's the water
That's what we just went
Yeah, we
over.
just went over that, so that,
closed in 2 weeks.
Table,
yeah. You want to table that
I'll
one?
make a motion.
Go ahead, Joseph.
I'll make a motion to table. Resolution, we're gonna leave it, Waterfowl.
I'll second it.
It's okay, so resolution 2023-329 is tabled, moved by Joe McLaughlin, seconded by trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is tabled.
Trustee resolution 2024-20, resolution to authorize purchase of 5 HP desktops, 1 HP notebook, and 6 monitors. I recommend its approval.
Second.
Seconded by Joe McLaughlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I have trustee resolution 2024-21. It's It's a notice of public hearing on an amendment of Blue Book A340, amending management products of the waters of the town of Southampton. The definitions, under boat ramp and 4x4 beach permit, reserved that the Board of Trustees of the Freeholders and Commonalty direct a public hearing shall be held on Monday, February 12th at 1 o'clock. Hear any or all persons either for or against proposed amendment of the Blue Book.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Trustee Warner. All in favor? And this is relative to commercial users of trustee boat ramps, owned facilities.
And docks and
And
facilities.
docks and facilities being responsible for damage to our facilities, and there's also a fee attached to the use of these facilities. All right, so we're all in favor?
Yep.
All right, so this is scheduled public hearing.
Trustee Resolution 2024-22, it's resolved that the recommendation and review of the town comptroller, the following vendor payment warrant number 1 be approved for the amount of $2,362.89 for card member services. I recommend its approval.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee McLaughlin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any discussions anybody have? I know we've been discussing a lot of things this afternoon. And we do have a little bit of exec session left to go into after this. So does anybody have any updates or? Oh, we have a walk-on. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Warner. We have a walk-on. I'd like permission to walk on an application.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
I am going to hand this paperwork over to Trustee Marin.
This is the application of Patricia Grant and 6 Town Line Road in the village of Sagaponic. This is just to do an emergency dune restoration project whereby her dune had been eroded in the last couple storms, so.
I will second his permit approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that concludes the walk-on emergency.
I do have I had a conversation with Suffolk County DPW, the dredging crews, leader Scott Hillary, discussing North Sea Harbor and potential spring dredging project there this spring. He asked me to contact the Bay Constables to do a site visit to see how the channel is faring through the winter season. And he's going to recommend that the material be placed on the east side of the channel, not on the west side where it has been done for the last couple dredging cycles. So it'll be put on the Todd Point side for everybody's information.
Okay.
If they do the dredging project in the spring, because we also have to deal with birds and migratory birds and other stuff. But as it approaches a little closer, I will update the board on what's happening down there.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Is there any, there has been some questions in the community of where the LY drain project is at?
I have not gotten an update from Terry at all, so I will contact him, and hopefully I will have an update by next meeting. I'm hoping that it's pretty close to finalization, because as we know, the last week or second week of February, sometimes the LYs do show up here, so as soon as I get an update, I will furnish it to everybody on the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else?
I'm good.
I thought it was nice that our liaison came in, making some good progress on working for the town. And,
He's on the record. He's on the record as a thing what he said, so it's good.
yeah,
Yes.
it's good. It's good when people work together. You really can get a lot of great things done. All right, so that being said, I think we've had enough going on here this meeting. And
Scott, I probably just missed it, forgive me, but was Reso 2024-22 approved the warrant for the check?
We did that, yeah.
Yes.
You did,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
Yep. As a matter of fact, we gave you your credit card number.
It's good. Well, that'll be another problem.
The black card.
Quick bounces.
All right. All right. We good?
Yep. Are we gonna go into executive now?
Yes, we gotta go quickly, so I'll make a
All right.
motion to adjourn and go into exec session.
Second that.
Seconded, Trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Were we doing this today, the Go-Burst thing?
Yeah, well, that's for the exec.
Yeah, that's not, it's, yeah. We're not doing that today.